Jillian Pensavalle, we're back in the studio.
The house CCO built. That's all I'm calling it. This is fantastic. I have a hoodie on.
I know. We are in our air-conditioned studio in June in New York City. We have spent years and years sweating through our clothes in January. We've earned this.
We were supposed to do this on like March 13th, 2020. And here we are. What's today? The 26th of June? 23rd of June. It's phenomenal to be here. I'm thrilled to be here. Oh my God. I'm going to start crying. Look at this. This is our table.
I know.
And our studio with our lights and our microphones and our chairs.
I know.
And my water.
I know.
Oh, hi, water.
Girl, you know what we have to do?
I know. Steve's going to kill us, and so will all the listeners if we don't.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Jillian Pensavalle.
Patrick Hines.
And we did it together. We didn't have to wait for a stupid delay via FaceTime.
You know what website I haven't looked at today? Timeanddate.com. Should we time and date it? No, bitch.
You guys, we've been time
Never
and dating
again.
it for the editors, like doing a clap so that they can start at the. It has been
editors. Be honest, that didn't help at all, right? Did it only make things worse?
No,
Thank you.
I was just saying to you the other day. Remember when we were like in early March of last year? I was like, I'm gonna buy you a microphone in case we need to record remotely. But remember when we were both like, but that's not gonna be a thing, right? We're not gonna not be in person. That's crazy.
And then I went home and Mike was like, I never thought I'd say this, but Patrick is not overreacting. We should like talk about what's going on. It just didn't feel real.
I know.
And now it feels too real.
I mean, that was the last time we were in person. That was 19 months ago.
It was 19 zillion years ago.
Oh my God. You guys, come see us live in Boston, July 31st, 7 p.m. at the iconic Wilbur Theater. Are you excited?
I'm thrilled. I love Boston. I love the Wilbur. I'm so excited. Lance and Tim and Maggie. It's going to be
We're covering The Disappearance of Maura Murray from Oxygen. That's why Lancey and Timmy and Maggie are going to be joining us. We did this show once before in Brooklyn 100 years ago.
Yeah.
It was so funny. There are moments of this show that are so funny that I can't breathe thinking about it now.
And maybe we'll do it again. Maybe we won't.
I know.
You never know with our live shows. But there are certain moments where Lance and Tim and Maggie will just sort of brace themselves.
I know.
So we'll see which ones they're going to be in Boston.
Also, you guys, if you want more shenanigans, join us on the Patreon. Over 200 full ad-free bonus episodes to download and binge. Hey, one of those series is All Be Gone in the Dark. Are we going to do that 7th episode they just released?
Yeah, I'm going to watch it first. But yeah, let's see. Because if it's just like, we'll see.
Okay, we'll see.
Not for any reason. It's just all like work stuff. Yes.
Listen, if you really want to DM GP, because she's going to make the decision.
I don't see them ever. I'm sorry. I'm in trouble for not being on social media enough.
All right, girl. Look, I'm going to ask you for real this week.
Okay.
What are we talking about? I don't understand a thing that happened.
It's very simple. It's called White Boy.
Okay. I watched it twice. There's a lot that I have to say, but I don't really understand the plot of this thing.
There's a lot that is here just like for context.
Yeah.
And context is important. We say that all the time. I'm already getting myself in trouble. What has happened now that I'm here? I just don't really know. I'm feeling it.
Don't know.
Feeling her today. It's about this guy named Rick Wershey.
Yeah.
And just this like nightmarish life that the FBI thrust upon him. Yeah. Essentially. There you go. You don't even have to listen to the rest of the app. Thanks. Bye.
We're gonna look like businessmen delivering packages.
Money, money, money!
Only us and you will know it's drugs. Okay.
Anybody who's in possession of over 650 grams of cocaine, mandatory life.
White boy Rick. His name is Richard Wershey Jr.
I was like, who was this white kid, you know, that was supposedly running all these black gangs and running the city of Detroit?
Why would a juvenile, nonviolent drug offender be kept in prison beyond 29 years?
I found out that the reality was much different than the legend.
And I knew that there were corrupt police officers involved in this thing.
Every police officer down at 1300 was crooked.
If you're a criminal, I would advise you never to get a nickname.
So they said, we got to kill that white boy.
Law enforcement created almost the perfect criminal.
The war on drugs is over, and drugs won.
There's still a lot of angry people in the city of Detroit, in positions of power.
I did way more than he could possibly have done to get that kind of a sentence.
Third world countries don't incarcerate like this.
You're not trying to tell me that you're an angel, that you never did anything wrong, are you?
I've been involved in wrongdoing, but I don't feel I did anything to receive a life sentence.
All right, you guys. So we open in Detroit, Michigan, September 4th, 2016. We're in court with this guy, Richard Wershey Jr. I'm just going to call him Rick because that's what everybody calls him.
White boy Rick, yes.
White boy Rick, exactly. And we just learned right away he's been in prison for 29 years. He's the longest serving nonviolent juvenile offender in the state of Michigan. He was convicted on February 4th, 1988 for possession with intent to deliver a controlled substance over 650 grams.
Yeah, even though you didn't understand it, you know to be furious about this, right? Like you're mad at least.
So because what we're going to learn eventually is that, remember the war on drugs, everybody? I feel like we've talked about it 8,000 times.
We lost.
Right. There's this amazing badass judge in this.
God,
I love her so much. She's the one who wanted to do right by him. She was his judge.
Yeah.
And like the prosecutor like wouldn't let her.
Her name is Judge Dana. We meet her right now. She's amazing.
I love her. She's amazing. And like eventually she says,
and I'll tell you from what I can see as a judge now, the war on drugs is over and drugs won.
The only thing I know about the war on drugs is that it's over and the drugs won.
Right. And meanwhile, it's like Nancy Reagan on different strokes. Like, just say no. And like Judge Dana's like, no, bitch, stop
Remember when we had first ladies that looked like Nancy Reagan and then we had first ladies who looked like Michelle Obama?
I know.
And what a difference a couple decades make.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, what a difference. Indeed.
But yeah, we learn eventually that like they instituted a law in Michigan that if you ever get caught with 650 grams, I don't even know how much that is.
Or more.
Or more of cocaine or whatever, drugs, you are automatically sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole.
Yeah, and so this coming up on goes on forever.
Yeah.
And it's mostly about like, oh my God, a 17-year-old kid is this drug kingpin? And then it's like, yeah, well, no one knows the real story. And then it's like, bum, bum, bum. But then Chris Hansen is here.
Who's he?
Chris Hansen is like, why don't you have a seat? He gets all the pervs.
Oh, that's Chris Hansen?
Chris, have a seat, Hansen.
He's the one that does the like, you think
To
you're
Catch a
going
Predator.
Yeah, right. Like you think you're going over to sleep with the 12-year-old, but
Right.
it turns out that Chris Hansen is there. Why do they stay? When he says, why don't you have a seat? Why do they do it?
I think it's a fight or flight, but opposite of like, I think they freeze. But some of them do run. I think there have been like, quote, tragedies where the pedophile dies or whatever. But like, because they get this actress who's 28, but looks like she's 13, truly, because even NBC's like, get legal in here. She's got to be, what, 30? Okay, great.
Hi,
I'm just changing. I just got back from cheerleading practice. And he's like, oh, cool. You got the condoms or what? And she's like, yeah, I'll be right down. Help yourself to the beer. He's like, oh, cool. Yeah, I brought a vodka and some porn. Oh, great. Why don't you have a seat? That's Chris Hansen.
And then the dude is like, oh, okay.
Oh, and they slowly just like, okay. And Chris is like, great. So you know what's going to happen, right,
Because
buddy?
in the pitch meeting for that show, Chris Hansen's like, no, I promise most of the time they're going to stay.
Right.
And everyone's like, there's no
way.
show here.
Chris, you can't just say have a seat to a rapist and they're going to do it. And Chris is like, watch me.
So anyway, Chris Hansen's here with his hair. I mean, the hair back in the day.
Right.
Oh my
Well, before
God.
he was Chris Have a Seat Hansen, which really rolls off the tongue. He was an investigative journalist in Detroit, like in the 80s and 90s. And so he made this 5-part series on the crack problem in Detroit.
As part of a 5-part series on the crack problem, I went on dozens and dozens and dozens of narcotics raids with a no crack task force. Crazy. I mean, today you probably wouldn't get away with that.
So, like, Chris Hansen was going on all these raids, these really, really violent raids, which is like...
Now that I know that it's Chris Have-a-Seat Hansen, I'm seeing him in a whole different context.
Right?
You know what I mean? I'm like, oh my God, that guy used to go on DEA raids with like the Detroit police.
But the police are taking, like, sledgehammers to toilets and ripping walls down. And
I
you know
know.
Chris Hansen, like, the original Have a Seat was like, can we not destroy this home?
He literally says you could never get away with this today. But we're learning about all the different gangs in Detroit. Like, how many times do we have to say New York was dangerous in the 70s?
I know,
we get
I know.
it. Detroit was bad in the 80s.
One of the gangs was called the Best Friends. Hey.
The other one was Young Boys Incorporated, to which I went, are they actually incorporated?
Maybe, in a way. In a way. And so then one of these gangs is the Curry brothers, and
Right.
it's Johnny and Leo Curry. And Johnny Curry is here with us today. He was a drug lord in the 80s, and you just ask him, he'll tell you.
You know what I said? He's fine. We are going to learn eventually he went and spent 14 years in jail. He doesn't care.
No.
We see at one point back in the day, this guy had a laundry basket full of money, so much so that he got sick of counting it and decided he was going to donate the rest to the needy.
Should we throw these ones away, man, since we got $500,000?
I'll tell you
whatever we can do, we can give it to the poor.
That's exactly what I say too. We'll just donate those to the poor.
He just couldn't count anymore. He's like, you know what? That's for the poor.
I haven't really seen someone in a long time who just has zero fucks like he does.
I gotta say, like, and you correct me, because I'm the guy that falls for this shit. There's something about him that I liked. There's something about him that I was like, you're kind of charming and like.
Because he speaks so much truth in a documentary where it's just a bunch of bullshit. And he's like, can we just be real for a second?
I know.
So this is broken up into chapters, and chapter 1 is called The Legend. And so we start to learn about White Boy Rick, the 17-year-old white boy.
And the thing about him being called White Boy Rick, one of the reporters or somebody who's with us is like,
one of the things you don't want to do if you're a criminal, I would advise you never to get a nickname, and especially a really catchy nickname.
Never get yourself a nickname, girl, especially a catchy one.
Because he's like the press-loved white boy. But we get an FBI guy who's like, just for context, there wasn't a single white person in any of these gangs, except for 17-year-old. And 17, he looks 13, 14.
100%. And Johnny Curry, the one who's here that I kind of like, is like, I liked White Boy Rick. And we're going to learn that, like, White Boy Rick goes and works for this guy. But he's like, we bought motorcycles together. This guy, White Boy Rick, is mentioned in a Kid Rock song.
Got more cash than White Boy Rick.
Kid Rock sucks. But he is like, White Boy Rick was the stuff of legend. He was known like on the East Coast, the West Coast. Like he was like a caricature. Like, who's this white kid running all the black gangs in Detroit? He looks like he's 10.
Yeah.
Like, how does this work?
Yeah. We also learned that the cops also really hated him.
A lot of the DPD that were working the Detroit drug scene at that time viewed Rick as a race trader, and definitely didn't like 14 and 15-year-old kids rolling around in BMWs and flashing cash wads that equaled more than their entire paycheck for the whole year. It bred a lot of resentment.
When I was 15, I barely had a paper route, girl.
I mean, girl, braces and frizzy hair. So
I wasn't, quote, running Detroit. Okay?
Like some drug lord in Detroit. Like,
who's
what?
that chunky gay kid with the glasses and the Indigo Girls tapes running Boston?
I'd be like, I want to go with her.
I know.
And the thing about White Boy Rick is that he really wasn't a poser because he grew up with black people his entire life. He wasn't like someone who was just trying to be like, hey, everyone, like, come hang out with me. He kind of knew his shit, is what we're told.
Right. And like they go back to Johnny Curry again to like really just let us know that he was like such a big player. In the 80s, he sold between $150 million and $200 million worth of drugs. And like, again, Detroit was so dangerous, the cops couldn't even break into these drug houses. And so we see like the only way they could get in was to drive a bulldozer through the side of the house.
Yeah.
When you see the video of this, like on the video, you hear the reporters going, oh.
This drug operation was so heavily fortified that police could not get through the front door.
Yeah. Ooh. Somewhere Chris Hansen is like, there's a much calmer way to do this. Just ask them to have a seat.
Just
I promise you they'll sit down.
The drug dealers to have a seat, they'll probably do it.
Trust me. Just give me a couple years. Trust me, that's how it happens. So now we meet a couple of people, and one of them is Nate Boone Kraft. And Nate...
You guys, this guy Nate Boone, I just call him Boone, he was a hitman, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he literally says in the 80s...
I was a hitman that worked for many different drug lords and KINGPIN, even some that weren't even in this country. They would hire me to do hits. I was involved with about 30 murders. I was responsible for almost 30 murders.
He is a convicted murderer. He's killed over 30 people.
My God.
He says it. He's like, yeah, I'd get, I don't know, like 50 grand per hit. And, I was very good. I'd add, where do you want them shot? In the head, the back, their dick? Like, what do you want?
No. The thing is, he's like...
What you want? The guy head? You want his arm? You want his private part?
I'm like, you can kill 30 people, but you can't say dick.
He's
Boone.
trying to be nice now. Because he's on the right, now he's on the right side of history. You're going to like these guys if you watch it.
He really is a character, I gotta tell you.
Absolutely.
He says, if you're gonna be like a gangster hitman like me, your body's gonna suffer. He lifts his shirt up and it doesn't look like a body.
Yeah, it's just filled with scars. He's been shot all over the place with like shotguns.
He's
and
like,
you can't, I watched The Wire. You can't always go to the hospital.
Yeah.
So you're just like dealing with it.
Can you imagine I roll up at your house at 2 a.m? JP, you gotta get this bullet out of my leg.
I'd say, what happened to Steve? Is Steve dead?
It's a long story. I can't talk, but I also can't go to the hospital, girl.
And then I'd
get
say,
the tweezers, get the vodka, and get the vodka.
All right, girl, have a seat.
You actually got very confident. I have no doubt that you would get that bullet out.
Well, when there's vodka and vodka involved, the confidence comes quick.
But this guy, like, his arm doesn't work, his hand doesn't work, his leg doesn't work, but he's still, like, jolly. He's, like, the guy that would play, like, Santa Claus to his, like, first graders class.
I'm sure he's nice now when you're his, like, adorable little niece.
I know. Because he says over and over again, like,
I'm like the Grim Reaper. You make my list, I'm coming for you, whether you good or bad.
if you were on my list, you were going to die. Like, he says it over and over and over again.
I killed 30 people.
I know. I'll do it again if I have to.
I'll take my shirt off to prove it again if I have to. And so now we learn about White Boy Rick's dad, who, I mean, this goes on forever, but he was a dick and he was a bad influence. He was like selling all these guns and taking Rick to gun shows, but illegally. It was all just like, he was just a bad dude.
I mean, the thing about his dad is that, like, his dad was also an informant. And so, like, his dad was, like, selling illegal guns and selling illegal silencers. There's something about the fucking silencers that are like, I'm sorry, again, why do they exist?
It's terrifying. It's really, really terrifying.
And so, like, he would sell them to the bad guys, and then he would go to the FBI and tell the FBI which bad guys he just sold this shit to. So he's on, like, everybody's payroll.
Right. And so now we learn, you know, that 650 law you were talking about? So the law is this. Anyone in possession of over 650 grams of cocaine, you're going to go away for life. And they call it the 650 law because they were like, well, if we make a law that's really, really, really harsh, people won't do drugs anymore, right? Or sell drugs anymore. And everyone's like, no, because it's about the money.
Right.
Nobody cares. I mean, people get addicted, of course, but it's about the money. And the money corrupted everyone. The government, the cops, everybody.
And they just say, like...
Well, historically, penalty has never been a factor in stopping a crime from occurring. As long as there's enough money in the crime, the penalty isn't going to make a big difference.
But can we take a quick detour to talk about that commercial with the bus driver? Because it's my favorite thing in this documentary.
What commercial with the bus driver?
We get a commercial from the 80s. Like, it was right in the middle of, like, the, you know, Just Say No campaign. There's, like, a blonde lady, like, about to snort a line of cocaine, and it's like...
1 out of every 5 people who try cocaine get hooked. But that's not your problem. Or is it?
And then it pulls out, and she's on a school bus full of children.
Oh my God.
And then it goes, or is it? And then she, like, slams the door closed.
Right. It's just the fear-mongering bullshit. That's why, like, when I can't remember what episode it was, but when you were like, I don't know why, but I was just so scared that someone was going to, like, shove cocaine up my nose.
Yes.
Commercials like that are why you felt that way.
Totally. It really worked on me, Nancy Reagan.
Well, you've never done coke.
No, oh, God. I would be like that bus driver. Hi, kids. Get on the bus, kids. Everybody have a good day, kids.
You're like, what? Who allows that?
I know.
God, I've never done coke either, for the record. I think it's horrible. But so, you know who else was super corrupt? The mayor, Mayor Coleman Young. And he was super powerful. Someone was like, oh, he was a machine.
I know.
Mayor Coleman Young. Okay, so this is a little bit of a family tree. Mayor Coleman has a niece named Kathy.
Yeah.
Kathy is married to Johnny Curry, the drug kingpin.
You guys think about that. Like, the mayor of Detroit's niece, who, by the way, he's super fucking close to, is married to this drug kingpin. And so the mayor gets a police detail for Kathy and her drug dealer family, and then tells all the people on that detail, don't get in the way of the selling of the drugs. You're just there to protect Kathy. Look the other way every time.
This is the mayor saying this is ridiculous. But, like, he's nothing compared to this guy named Gil Hill. He's the head of the homicide division at the time. He was also in Beverly Hills Cop, which was a super famous movie back then. And I'm saying that because I feel like listeners are like, the what?
I know. Here's the thing. This is insane. This guy has a real job. Like, he's in politics. He wants to go on and be the fucking mayor of Detroit. He, like, takes a side job being, like, a major lead in Beverly Hills Cop with Eddie Murphy.
Basically playing himself, because right now he's the head of homicide division, so he's like Eddie Murphy's boss in the movie, so he's like, kind of playing himself.
Inspector T, how you doing? Where the you been, Foley?
Do you know I mean, I know you know how hard it is to get a part like that in a fucking movie.
I know, just
it's
like for
a lead
fun.
role. Yeah, just
so
for
annoying.
funsies.
Like it's some asshole, because Gil Hill sucks.
He sucks.
So someone, like the filmmaker, asks Nate, the hitman.
Was Gil Hill affiliated with the drug world?
Affiliated? Yeah, he was affiliated.
Nate laughs. He's like, affiliated? Yeah, he was affiliated. That's one way to put it.
He had a list of people the bad guys weren't allowed to kill.
Like Nate was like, here's how I know. Yeah. His receipts are that Gil Hill would say, oh, don't kill this guy. Like going by his list. No, that guy's good. You can kill him. No, not him. Do that one in the back, that one in the chest, not that one. You stay away from that one. Again, this is the head of homicide in Detroit.
And like, that's the thing. Like, I feel like this documentary spends a lot of time trying to convince us that like the government of Detroit was corrupt. We get it. It was really fucking corrupt.
Yeah.
And Boone, the guy who killed 30 people who will kill you without even thinking about it, it's like, yeah, we kind of did what that Gil Hill guy told us to do.
Yeah.
We needed favors from him. We did favors for him for the favors. Like, Detroit was wild.
If you're a hitman, you know who you want your good friend to be? The head of homicide.
Totally. Yeah.
But there was also like the drug dealers liked him, but there was a lot of animosity towards Mayor Coleman Young because he was super corrupt and people were just like, there was a lot of he was a black guy. There was like racism involved, but he also sucked. So
we get another like choice moment with Mayor Coleman where we learned that like the cops are stealing from this fund that was meant to be used to buy drugs undercover to bust the bad guys. And Mayor Coleman is on a TV show like being interviewed about it. And you just hear him go,
"And who the you think you are to come in here and cross-examine me?"
That's how I would be if I was on.
Oh, that's how you would be if you were a podcaster. I feel like you've come this close in interviews to be like, who the fuck are you to come in here?
You are? Talking to me like that. Get out of here.
So now we're back to that guy Curry, the guy that's married to the mayor's niece,
Yeah.
who like the mean bad guy that I kind of like. We learned that for whatever he gets caught for, he has a plea deal and he like goes to jail for 20 years, but he only actually serves 14. And then he's here to tell us about it. And I said, again, he's fine. He doesn't care.
He's fine.
He's totally fine.
To prove that point, there's like a raid. There's some raid in his house that he was involved in or whatever. And it turns out that 17-year-old white boy Rick is in bed with Johnny Curry's wife, who's the mayor's niece, Kathy. And Chris Havaseat Hansen is like,
That's a bad day for the mayor's office.
that's a bad day for the mayor's office. And so white boy Rick is dating Mayor Coleman Young's niece and that guy, the drug dealer's girlfriend or wife or whatever. And he's here and Johnny Curry's like, I really don't begrudge her any of it. She was high and it was, I really understand. I mean, the guy couldn't give a fuck about anything.
But in that raid, that guy, white boy Rick, gets busted with 8 kilos of cocaine and sentenced to life.
We learn also that this lifer law was repealed in 1998 because it was deemed cruel and unusual. And I just have in my notes, oh no.
Yeah.
And because like those sentenced under the 650 lifer law were supposed to have a chance to be paroled. And then I say again, oh no. Oh God. He's still in prison, isn't he?
Yeah, and like this is where like I think the movie tells a lot of this sort of out of order.
Yeah.
Because this is where we start to hear like he was sent to prison and didn't get out when this law was revoked because he was like some major kingpin. And everyone's like,
Kingpin of what?
He didn't have a drug gang. He didn't have crack houses.
You ever kill anyone? No. Ever order anyone killed? No.
I'm sorry to tell you that the legend of White Boy Rick is just not true.
Kingpin of what? This guy didn't have a gang. He didn't have a crack house. He never killed anybody. He never ordered anybody killed. What's the real story here? Why really don't they want to let him out?
Right, because Rick was being written about in the paper like this. Like the media was really feeding into this. I mean, and we see footage of him. I'm not exaggerating. He's 17, but he looks way younger than that. And so he's the only white guy in this, and everyone's just like, what? Even Johnny Curry's like, he was 17 years old.
Right.
I did way more shit than Rick ever did, and I was out in 14 years. And we get one of the FBI guys, and he's like, honestly, like third world countries don't pull this shit. Like, this is crazy.
Because this is where we hear Rick in his own words in a taped interview saying,
"Here's the truth. At the age of 14, I was recruited by the FBI to become an informant.
So now it's sort of like, wait, like you were an informant, but then you still got busted and got sent to jail for it. So like that's the story we're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
Part 2 is called The Truth.
Right. And so what happens is, remember Rick's dad, who was a piece of shit?
Yeah.
And he was an informant. So when he would go to meet the FBI guys, he'd bring white boy Rick, his son.
Yeah.
And then when it came time to talk about the Curry gang, Johnny Curry, Rick Sr. would be like, all right, son, you're up, because he actually was friends with Johnny Curry.
Exactly.
So then white boy Rick is the real source of information. He was using his son to get paid. And then the cops are like, well, why don't we just start paying you, Rick Jr.?
Totally.
And so he ends up getting like $35,000 from law enforcement.
At 15 years old, and we see this like cool animation. He's like, I was 15, I bought a car.
Right. And the cops
you can't
are like,
even drive a car yet.
The cops are, how do you sign off for that? I guess you just wave $35,000 in the Maserati house or whatever, the store.
I'm going to the house of Maserati.
Ooh, I'm not a car person,
No,
not
me
into
either.
the cars. And so the FBI's like, here's a great plan, 15-year-old.
Yeah.
Why don't you infiltrate the Curry gang and then pretend you want to get into the drug game, and then we'll pay you, and then you give us information, and we'll take this gang down.
And here's the thing. He fucking does it.
What?
Like,
his influence is his dad being like, go, 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 go.
Well, I would have thought that this guy Curry, Johnny Curry, who's with us, the guy that I kind of like, would have been a little bit more suspicious because like everyone is saying like there were no white guys in this gang world, right? So when the white kid shows up, you'd think that Johnny Curry would be suspicious, but Johnny tells us
We had started letting him do a little errands, and then he started knowing a few people that you figured you buy from the white boy, so dope is good or whatever, you know, so he started doing his thing.
The bougie people who do drugs were more comfortable buying it from a white kid. So it actually kind of worked for everybody. And like Johnny never even thought that this 14-year-old could possibly be like an informant for the FBI, welcomes him in with open arms.
And remember, he was friends with everyone.
Right.
Because he wasn't a poser. He actually was friends with these people.
Totally. And then like the FBI is saying that like it was working. The information that Rick was getting was always perfect. Like when Rick was like, the drugs are going to that house, the drugs would be at that house.
Yeah, and he wasn't just working with the FBI, which is something I learned. Like, this is not an exclusive relationship. They were seeing other people.
We had DEA involved, the FBI involved. We had United States Customs, Michigan State Police. We had Detroit Police.
That's actually what was going on. Detroit Police Department officers were also using this kid in undercover capacity.
He was working actively doing gigs for those people. And like the thing that's so tragic about it is that he was like 14, 15 years old. He didn't know any better. And like I wrote at one point, his dad is like the fucking drug version of a stage mother, being like,
totally.
He wasn't able to make it as an informant, but my son's gonna make it. Some people can sing the fuck out, Louise.
Yeah.
And it's like, you guys, that's a Gypsy reference in case you, that's a musical about a stage mother.
You're not even getting 88 cents from me, Rose.
But like he shouldn't have been able to be used and abused by all these different agencies, and they were just taking advantage of him because he was really fucking good at it.
Yeah, and he'd also say like, it's like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
They'd have him out at some club getting information or making drug deals, and he'd be like, I have to wake up at 7 a.m. for school. And they wouldn't say like, drop out of school, but they'd say like, well, too bad we need you here.
Yeah, and here's another $35,000. You know what I mean? Like it's really heartless and sad, but like they were gonna use this kid until he was either killed or he knew too much and they would have to do something to get rid of him, which is what fucking happens.
Right. So now it's 1984. It's chapter 3, informant. And Johnny Curry gets wise. He figures out white boy Rick is the informant. He has to be. He puts it all together.
To which I said, you in danger, girl?
You in danger. Right.
I took a deep breath when I was like, oh God, this fucking guy found out that you're... That's not a good day.
No, because the word on the street is that Johnny Curry ordered white boy Rick dead.
Yeah.
And so there's this whole crazy story where white boy Rick gets shot in the stomach at close range.
This story is bananas. It's like white boy Rick and this other kid were skipping school. They're both working for Johnny Curry. They're at a house. The kid's like, oh, white boy Rick, why don't you come upstairs?
We were in the house approximately 5 minutes. We were both skipping school that day. He went upstairs.
And after a couple minutes, says, hey, Rick, come over here, come to the stairs.
As soon as I hit the top of the stairs, he comes out of the bedroom, shoots me in the stomach.
Shoots him in the stomach, but then pulls a Patrick. He shoots him in the stomach, and then he's like, doesn't kill him. And he's like, and he totally panics. And white boy Rick is like, bitch, calm down, call 911. And he refuses.
The woman in the room, the girlfriend calls 911 and saves Rick's life.
But then we find out that like the girlfriend and the brother of the guy who did the shooting like are throwing white boy Rick. Like we see the reenactment and it all just feels so painful. I feel like getting shot in the stomach would really fucking hurt.
Yeah.
They throw him in the back of their car. Then the ambulance shows up. They drag the reenactment actor out of the car, throw him in the ambulance. I was like, you guys, he's been shot in the stomach.
Right. And then cut to Johnny Curry today.
I had nothing to do with his getting shot. If an agent said it or whoever said it, the police officer, whoever said it, they way out of order then.
I had nothing to do with him getting shot. And something that's wild, too, Rick's friends, family, and the FBI all show up to the hospital. And I'm like, think about that. That's crazy.
And what's even crazier is that Rick's dad and an FBI guy come to blows by the vending machine.
I know. Like, Rick's dad sucks. I hate him.
Dad, I still wanted the Cheetos, though.
Yeah.
But can you still get me the Cheetos? Like, they're fighting. I mean, like, honestly, it's hard because, like, everyone knows that, like, the dad is using Rick just as much as the FBI is using Rick.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Like, almost more so.
Yeah. And he's like, and Rick is lying in a hospital bed dying, having been shot in the stomach.
I know. And then the task force realizes, oh, shit, if this kid dies and it comes out that we're using a 14-year-old, like, that's the scandal of scandals.
Right.
Not like, oh, my God, a 14-year-old that we put in this situation might die. It's no, how's that going to look for us?
And so by some fucking miracle, the kid doesn't die. And now, so like they realize this is even so crazier. Rather than saying like, oh my God, this kid almost died. Let's just like cut our losses. He did great work for us. Like let's let him go back to his life and go back to fucking school.
That's what I have. I'm like, you think they call it a day with Rick, right? Like it was a good run, but enough is enough. Let's let him live and go to math class.
Totally. They're like, no, now that he's been shot, he's got credibility.
Members of that task force came to the conclusion this would increase his credibility. We're going to push it into high gear. We're going to send him back into the Curry gang. And if there was any belief that he was an informant before, that belief was going to go out the window because if he was a snitch, Johnny Curry would be in handcuffs right now.
Go back to Johnny Curry, be like, I can't believe you got me fucking shot. You thought I was an informant. And the FBI's like, Curry will now believe him because if he had been an informant, Curry would be in handcuffs at this point.
Right,
you know?
Exactly.
And like, you guys, and it's also just like, no one's looking out. I feel like underage informants should have agents. Somebody should be looking out for this kid's best interest.
Yeah, there should be someone, and you think like, well, shouldn't that be the FBI? Like, we shouldn't need another agency to monitor this, but clearly we do.
They think this kid is trash and worthless, so they don't fucking care. And the dad, why isn't the dad putting his foot down?
Because he's probably getting some of the money. You know, it's just like, it's a really shitty, like everyone around him.
Can we normalize loving your kids and making sure that they're not underage informants?
It would be great. Don't have to be a mother to know that. But I hate to break it to you, girl. We got to go to Vegas. I know you hate Vegas, but we got to go.
I know that I hate Vegas because I was there with Rabia.
I know.
And I didn't like it.
I know.
You know, although when Steve and I were in LA, I did get drunk and say to him, I feel like it'd be fun to go to Vegas with you for a weekend.
If we went to Vegas, we'd have fun.
You and I would have fun for sure. We wouldn't remember a minute of it, though.
It'd be great. We got to stay hydrated.
We'd wake up at JFK on Monday morning and be like, how did we... Where were we?
And then we'd turn around and like the camera would pan out and it'd be Mike and Steve just fucking exhausted by us. You're welcome. So all these drug guys, this is confusing and crazy, but we're gonna just get through it the best we can because like it ends with heartbreak.
Weirdly, I didn't understand a single thing, but I feel like I could do this quickly.
You want to go?
Should I take it? Should I take a crack? All right, ready?
Let's go.
This is chapter 4. It's called Damian Lucas. Right? Here's the deal. There's some big fighting thing that's happening in Las Vegas.
A boxing match, girl. You know what a boxing
Why
match
do
is.
people punch each other until they pass out?
I don't know. I don't like boxing or like UFC. I think is the worst. Like I don't get it.
You guys stop hitting each other.
I know. I don't get it.
Punching each other until you pass out.
I know.
So
like bare knuckle boxing. Like no.
No, there's a big fight thing happening in Vegas, and everyone from Detroit wants to go because one of the guys is like a Detroit person thing, and Johnny Curry wants to go too. And he has this guy that owes him a favor, and that guy's name is Leon Lucas. And it's a long story as to why this guy owes him a favor, but the bottom line is this guy, Leon, is supposed to have set up rooms and tickets to the fight for Johnny Curry, and he didn't do it. And so he gets there. I thought I had it, but I think I've lost.
Yeah. So I'll take it. So Johnny Curry and all the guys go to Vegas expecting tickets and this VIP treatment to make up for this drug deal or whatever that went wrong. Everything was going to be taken care of like he was told, but
frankly,
it wasn't.
Rabia and I had the same plans. We got there, no boxing, no VIP treatment.
Nothing, right? So they go back home, and some of Johnny Curry's guys decide to do a drive-by for payback for them not getting the good seats at the boxing match. So Leon...
Oh, it's way better when you tell the story. I don't know what I was thinking.
Oh, well, it's going to get real bad, so everyone pull over. This is
I
really
know.
fucking sad. So Leon Lucas, the guy who was supposed to get the VIP tickets, wasn't home. And these Johnny Curry's guys end up killing his 13-year-old nephew named Damian Lucas.
Yeah.
So Johnny Curry is on wiretap saying...
And he was lamenting, whoever he was talking with, that, you know, those guys shouldn't have gone over there. I told them don't go over there. He was sorry that this whole thing had taken place, probably because it was bringing a lot of heat on him and his drug organization.
And Johnny Curry, who's with us, we get on-screen text that says, as part of like the agreement for this interview, he will not answer questions about this case.
Right.
So even though he's here to talk about it, he's not going to talk about it.
Right. But then Rick overhears a phone call, and he learns that Gil Hill, that asshole from Beverly Hills Cop, and the most corrupt guy ever, is covering up the murder of the 13-year-old.
Because remember, that guy's the director of the homicide. Like, he works for the fucking government. He's the guy who should be getting the bad guys. And instead, he's in cahoots with Johnny Curry to cover up this murder of this 13-year-old fucking kid.
Right. So while Johnny Curry won't talk about it, and he's on the right side of history now, and you might like him, but according to this documentary, Johnny Curry paid $10,000 for Gil Hill to cover it all up.
You did a way better job than I ever could have. Next time I say the words, I think I could do this, say no, girl.
Okay. But it's fun to see you try, because one day you're going to nail it, and it's going to be great.
This guy, Gil Hill, eventually runs... his name is so ridiculous.
Gil Hill. And he loves it. He loves it.
Gil Beverly Hills.
Yeah, it's no... Nice. It's no white boy Rick.
No.
Gil
And
Hill.
this guy, like, eventually runs for mayor, and, like, this comes back to bite him, thank fucking God. And don't worry, he dies before the movie is over, so he gets his.
I have that in my notes, too. Like, hooray, he's dead. So now we're chapter 5, Kill That White Boy. And Hitman Nate, who really has, like, scalding hot, scorching teeth. Hitman Nate is like, here's
and he's
something.
ready to spill all of it.
All of it.
He's
like,
real ready to
on
spill
the
it.
record later, we'll get to it. He, like, can't wait. So Hitman Nate is like, oh, my God, girl, guess what? Gil Hill told me, Hitman Nate, to kill white boy Rick.
Well, I was told to kill white boy Rick. We heard that he was telling. So they said, we got to kill that white boy. He want us to make sure that we kill white boy Rick. Make sure that boy's dead. But we got to make sure that it don't lead back to no one. I said, well, you know me. All my hits don't lead back to no one.
The reason that Gil Hill wants him dead is because he knows too much.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Like, and because he knows about that deal where Gil Hill was going to cover up the murder, whatever. Like, this kid that has been, like, threw away his life to work for these people, they're now trying to have him killed.
And now the FBI just stops calling him. But they don't stop calling him and say, here's some therapy, or here's school, or here's, like, they don't set him up in any way. So what the hell else was he supposed to do? He does what he knows. He becomes a drug dealer.
Exactly.
And also he starts dating Johnny Curry's wife, Kathy, the mayor's niece.
It's crazy. And we get the story from Nate Boone, the hitman, about, like, pulling up next to white boy Rick on the street.
We stopped, that side door flew open, Boo sitting in the chair. Man, hand me another gun. I said, we better reach up in this. By that time, they done speeded off. That's the only reason why he was still alive. The Mac jammed on us.
He opens the door to his van to blow him away with like a semi-automatic gun. The gun jams. That's the only reason Rick is still alive. And that is not the last time Boone tries to kill him.
I know. Nate.
We know that Rick is in jail, right? That's why we're here.
Right.
So we get the story of his arrest. And basically, Rick had been in contact with these Colombian wholesale cocaine dealers in Miami. And like, again, he had like a small time operation. And like Johnny Curry is like,
from a scale of 1 to 10, I'm a 10. I say he was about a 2. Rick was nowhere near me.
Everybody really wants to know that like Rick was on the lower end of the pecking order, but the cops really want to arrest him because he knows too much. So there's some sort of setup where they know that these trucks are coming in with the drugs, and Rick, goes to receive the drugs and gets the money, and the cops pull them over, and there's this whole thing where it's all going down in front of Rick's house, and the cops like find this bag of cash, and Rick's dad, who just has never seen a fight he doesn't want to get into. No. Remember the fight by the Cheetos?
You are nailing this, by the way. I didn't want to interrupt you. You got this. Keep going. You're nailing it. You just said one day you'll find it. You found it. Minutes later, we're here. We're living it. Amazing.
The dad comes running out of the house, tackles the cop holding the bag of money.
Right. Takes the money and runs, literally.
And I'm like, I want to believe that he's doing this to help his son, but I also kind of think he just wants the money.
He wants the money, and again, a fight.
Right. So he runs down the street, and like the cops say they spend the next several hours like searching the neighborhood for drugs, trying to find something to arrest Rick on. How'd I do?
You did really fantastic. I was Marge Simpson groaning because the cops like eventually find the drugs under a porch or whatever, and they put white boy Rick in the hospital. Everyone's like, this was a setup, clearly. So now white boy Rick needs some lawyers, and he had a lawyer.
This is so confusing. I don't understand what happened here.
Up. So he had a lawyer who was a white guy, and the lawyer's like, you need black lawyers for this. Like,
why?
Because they said it would be better for the jury.
Okay.
So,
I mean, I guess if Detroit is like a largely black city, then the jury's going to be largely black or whatever.
Yeah. But the thing about these lawyers, Edward Bell and Sam Gardner, it doesn't matter, but these lawyers were also the lawyers for the corrupt mayor who has the security detail on his drug-dealing niece.
Who is now dating the guy that's on trial and said
who used to be dating Johnny Curry.
Right.
I mean, the same lawyers? How?
And the thing about this, the important part is that, like, the mayor has incentive for white boy Rick to go to jail. So, like, he gave him the lawyers, but, like, the lawyers are intentionally going to throw the case so that white boy Rick goes to jail because that's what the mayor wants.
And because you know what they're not mentioning? That he was working for the government since he was 14.
Before they went to trial, his trial attorneys agreed to withdraw all the pretrial motions. They agreed not to admit any evidence in front of the jury that he had been working for the government since he was 14. So the jury never heard that.
That is really fucking sad. Like, that's what I was getting at earlier, where, like, he was so good at informing on these bad guys that the cops were just going to use him and use him and use him until they couldn't use him anymore, and then they were going to throw him away. And that is exactly what's happening.
Right. And it's like, guess what? He's fucking convicted. Shocking. This is the worst.
Right. And here's the thing. This is where it gets out that he was, like, this kingpin rich guy, because the police are paying the local gangsters.
Like Hitman Nate?
Like Hitman Nate and finding extras, basically, to show up, like, in their fancy cars with their fancy jewelry and their fancy clothes to make it look like they worked for white boy Rick.
Right.
So that like the jury and everybody would see that, like, oh my God, he really is a kingpin. And you see Rick talking about it, he's confused. He's like, I don't know why they were there. Like, I don't know what they were doing.
Like, you've seen me, right?
Yeah.
I so clearly look like a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah.
But Hitman Nate works for Rick?
Right.
In what universe?
No, and like this is where the legend of white boy Rick comes from, because the other thing we haven't mentioned that much is that the press doesn't look into it. They fall for all of it.
We had to rely on law enforcement. We saw the documents. We saw them firsthand. They were shared with us, and we did our best to vet them, but we were certainly not making stuff up or fabricating. There was enough going on to keep us all busy with crazy enough stories.
The graphics that they show us of the actual reporting of the time, like putting Rick at the head of some of these fucking gang families.
And again, his photo, Google his photo from like his mugshot or whatever, like he's a child.
Yeah, I mean, like the government completely set this up for him to take the fall. It's bananas.
Right. So now Chapter 6, Backbone. There's something called Operation Backbone, and the FBI is looking into police corruption.
Yeah.
And they, like, pitch it to Rick, and they're like, hey, Rick, if you help us, we'll get you in witness protection. And
But not out of jail. We're going to get you in witness protection jail.
I know.
Which is like, how is there not being a Steve Martin comedy movie about the fucking witness protection jail? You know what I mean?
There is,
My Blue Heaven. But it's like regular witness protection. I want the sequel where he has to go to witness protection jail.
I love that you know My Blue Heaven.
I saw it in the movie theater when I was in 7th grade.
You have to talk to Mike about My Blue Heaven.
Oh, really?
He always quotes it in that voice. Oh, you're going to melt all of this stuff. So the FBI pitches to Rick, if you help us, we'll get you in this witness protection thing that I just learned about, that you can be in witness protection in prison.
Yeah.
And or if you're ever eligible for parole, we'll testify for you.
One more thing about this witness protection prison, it's full of other people who are also in witness protection.
Which, like, defeats the purpose.
But also, how has there not been, like, a 10-part, like, Netflix show about this?
Right, like, where is it? I mean, I guess we'll never know.
Totally.
But so the goal basically is to take down all the corrupt police and Mayor Coleman. That's the thing.
Keep the kid that did all this stuff for you, keep him in jail forever. But get him to do it again one last time, you guys.
Can't the FBI just say, we'll get you out of here?
Yeah, right. I mean, like, I guess the truth of the matter is, like, he did do some bad stuff, but, like, he went into a life of crime because he had no other options, because that's all he knew, because that's what the FBI wouldn't let him go to geometry.
I feel like the trade-off is pretty okay here.
Totally.
FBI, you did this. You got him here, idiots. So the FBI is trying to make this big takedown happen through Kathy, the mayor's niece, who's the ex of Johnny Curry and currently maybe still dating my boy Rick.
But she's also not in on it. So, like, the thing is, this is so great, you guys. They basically, like, get white boy Rick to get her, like, in a room with, like, her uncle or whatever. And they're like, you guys, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get you guys back in the cocaine game.
Yeah.
We see the surveillance of this meeting, and we are just told that Kathy is over the moon to get back into the cocaine game.
Yeah, like, because with the help of your uncle, the mayor.
Totally
like,
right, yeah.
And this is all, I mean, they're talking amounts, specifics, but the cops are like, hey, so you'll do the bad stuff, and then we'll also do it's the worst acting.
How we saw this in the Varsity Blues thing, where, like, the sting operation for the college scandal, where it's like, so what you're saying is that you want me to fake the picture so I can get them fraudulently into the it's the same thing here. It's like,
we'd like to fly something in. We're gonna look like businessmen delivering packages. Okay. Only us and you will know it's drugs. You provide protection and protection from the police. You can handle that?
And what you're talking about is no problem.
Right.
I got 3 Detroit police officers myself. That's
okay. All right.
So we are going to
so
move
we'll commit
the
a Class
cocaine.
A felony,
right?
for the agreed upon amount.
You understand is illegal, right? You understand that you are knowingly and there
15 to 30 years minimum.
Kathy's like,
yeah.
How quickly do I get
Where
back
do I
into the
sign? Is there? You have a pen or? But I think I have one.
These people are so stupid.
So they end up busting 18 corrupt police officers and politicians, except for Gil Hill. He doesn't get arrested, but it ruined his chance at mayor.
And he does die before the documentary is over.
I know. We'll get there. I can't wait. But now Gil Hill has it out for Rick even more. He already had it out for him. And so this, like, even Rick eventually says,
I think helping the FBI with Operation Backbone was the biggest mistake of my life because it created enemies that I couldn't even imagine. I was a kid. I didn't think of the political aspects of it.
So here we are. We're at Chapter 7. It's called Parole. And we are told in Michigan, you're supposed to have one parole hearing every 5 years. Even that seems like too far in between parole hearings. Yeah. Rick got one parole hearing in his 28 years in prison.
That should make you want to flip a table. That is so obvious. If it wasn't obvious enough that there's corruption here and he's being, like, made an example of or whatever, not even that. Like, they're just, like, making him suffer.
And, like, where are his advocates? I don't understand. You know what I mean?
Right here, buddy. Right here. And so now, like, his original trial judge, who's already retired, says, can we let him out of prison? He served a long time. I'm totally cool with him being released. Like, I think this is ridiculous. The prosecutor's office at first is like, yeah, let him out. 2 weeks later, someone got to them because they write back.
2 weeks later, another letter comes from that office saying, disregard the first letter, we don't want him out. In the letter, which was a multi-page letter, they were saying that Richard Wershey Jr. was responsible for the downfall of the city of Detroit.
He's responsible for the downfall of Detroit. He's so dangerous. We just couldn't keep up with White Boy Rick, the 17-year-old. A bunch of people signed this. You know who else signed it?
Who?
One of his lawyers.
Oh, yeah.
Sam Gardner, who's working for the mayor.
His own lawyer signed the thing saying don't let him out. His own lawyer.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So he's denied parole. Everyone's lying. Like, all these people are coming out. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit.
Yeah.
He's denied parole. But because he helped out the FBI for that big bust, he's serving his life sentence in federal protective custody.
Then we learned, you guys, he's denied parole. But then in 2005, it's revealed that Rick is somehow involved in some like minor auto theft ring. He's trying to get a car for his fucking mother.
Right. And he's a model prisoner. Other than that, like, people are saying, like, there's nothing on his record. The only thing, he was trying to get his mother and sister a car.
Yeah. So, like, just put a pin in that because he gets busted for that and he gets 5 years added to his life sentence. And everybody is
so
saying
petty.
it's so petty. And everyone says in most cases like this, it would just be concurrent, like you'd serve it at the same time. But for White Boy Rick, they made it consecutive. So if he ever actually got out of jail on this life sentence, he would still have to go to Florida and serve those 5 years.
Keep that in mind. Yeah. So right now, we're back with Judge Dana from the beginning, who we love.
We love her. We learned that her like grandfather was also a judge, but like not a good one.
Yeah. Dana's like here to change the game. I love her.
She was his judge, you guys. Like, this is unheard of.
Yeah, because
this
now
never happened.
Yeah, so now we're in 2015.
Yeah.
She's in charge now. She's like, this is fucking ridiculous. He was a kid. He was used. Yeah. I am the judge. I would like to resentence him. And she's like, all I want to do is say time served. It's over. He's out. Whatever.
I got to introduce you to somebody.
I hate her.
I know. Her name is Kim Worth, and she's a prosecutor.
It's Worthy, and she's not worthy of my time.
When Prosecutor Worthy objected to my resentencing, I was disappointed. And then when the Court of Appeals sided with the prosecutor, I was disappointed again. I thought that my opinion had strong legal footing, given the fact that his sentence was ultimately an Eighth Amendment violation, and I thought that the remedy should have been resentencing.
I just don't understand how it's possible.
I don't understand it either. But I have in my notes, Gil Hill finally fucking dies. Bye. And so, like, he's denied, right? So Judge Dana can't do what she wants to do. And after that happens, the documentary crew has an idea. They release footage publicly to the news of Hitman Nate talking about, if you don't help White Boy Rick, I will name names.
So this suddenly, remember that guy tried to kill him? He tried to kill him twice. We didn't even get to the second time.
Because now Gil Hill is dead.
Right.
And now Nate can talk. So Nate's like, if you guys don't help White Boy Rick, I'm going to start naming names.
And like, what's his name? Charlie Curry is like saying the same thing. He's like, let this fucking kid out. I killed 800 more people than he did.
The more people talk, Kim Worthy's like, hi, I changed my mind. Because she was in cahoots with Gil and now he's dead.
Yeah.
And now Nate's like, I'm going to name names. Kim.
Yeah.
Kimmy. And she's like, I'm not going to help him, but I'm not going to stand in his way either. So Judge Dana, like, you can do what you want to do, but now it's up to the parole board.
Right.
And so then we get this, like, montage of all of these people, like Johnny Curry and Hitman Nate, and just, like, random people that we haven't even, like, said by name yet. It's like they got 7 years, 8 years, 14 years. People convicted, like, Hitman Nate was in prison saying, like, I did at least 30.
At least 30 murders.
I will take my shirt off to prove it. And he's out of prison. That's the big reveal.
I know.
That Nate the Hitman is out of prison. He got 17 years for admitting to kill 30 people.
Now that we're talking about it, I feel like as a separate matter, we need to relook at that. How do you get out of prison after 17 years for killing 30 people?
Girl. He's chatty. I think he named names in other situations. That's the only way you're out of prison.
Oh my God.
And that's why he can just keep saying it.
Yeah.
Because it's like he can't be convicted for it again, and he just got right.
Oh my God.
And even Johnny Curry's like,
He done served a lot of time for something that he wasn't. Bottom line, for something that he wasn't.
he wasn't a kingpin. He didn't bring down Detroit. He was a child. The FBI put him in this situation and threw away the key. It's ridiculous. So now in 2017, White Boy Rick gets out, which is amazing, right? His family is cheering. They're crying.
We see it. We're with them when they watch the news, when they learn that he's out.
Right. But then all the air gets sucked out of the room because remember that car thing? Those 5 years? Now he has to go to Florida, of all places, and serve 5 more years. And so the documentary ends with saying, like, his supporters are still trying to free him.
Yeah.
He's out.
He's out?
He got out July 20th, 2020. He is out.
Oh, my God. That's like
Finally.
a year ago.
I know.
Just in time to be stuck inside for a year.
But by July 20th in Florida, they were partying anyway. I hope he's okay. I hope he was wearing a mask and distancing and stuff. But I mean, this should all infuriate you. I mean, this should, because it happens all the time. And like,
then you get the one good judge who can't even. Why do we elect these people judges if they can't make the fucking decisions?
Like, who is Kim worthy to come along and throw a wrench in the whole thing? I don't get it.
Right.
And if it happened to white boy Rick, think about who it's happening to, everybody.
I know.
Think about it. Just put on your thinking caps and think about if this is happening to white boy Rick, who else it could possibly be happening to, and on what level?
Right. She's real mad, you guys.
That's your homework for this week.
Girl, welcome back to the studio.
This was so amazing. And we're recording Patreon after this. I'm never leaving.
Isn't it crazy to be here?
I'm telling you, we were here Monday to do a photo shoot for a little photo shoot for our new merch, by the way. And it's still surreal. I still feel like I'm not like actually here.
Are you sweating through your clothes?
I'm not. I'm not.
You guys, come see us live in Boston, July 31st at the Wilbur. It's been my dream to play the Wilbur. I'm from Boston. I love this theater so much. We are covering The Disappearance of Maura Murray with Lance and Tim and Maggie.
Yeah, it's going to be great. If you saw the show...
There's a bar in the room, girl.
Oh, yeah, you don't have to leave.
No, you can, guys, drinks forever. There's a bar in the room.
Yeah, double Vodstods. If you're just passing by the stage on your way back. Right. Double Vodstod with a lime. Thank you so much.
Also, join us on the Patreon, you guys. Over 200 ad-free, hilarious bonus episodes to download and binge right this second.
Yeah, like all those series. The Jinx, Making a Murderer.
Don't F with Cats, Tiger King.
Night Stalker, Murder Among the Mormons.
Yeah, Murder in the Bayou.
This is a robbery.
Lorena, the Menendez murders. The Menendezes, everyone's talking about them again.
No, we're doing the Preppy Murder, too.
Yes, we're starting the Preppy Murder today.
Oh, my God, I hate him.
Girl, what are we doing next?
We are doing The Housewife and the Hustler.
I remember when you watched this, you got in the Slack and you were like, we're bumping everything.
Yeah.
We're doing this next?
Yeah, submitted for the approval. I don't know anything about The Housewives.
Yeah,
I'm not a housewife person, but I've learned a lot. In like the first 5 minutes, I'm like, is that what that's like? Oh my God, it's nuts.
So stay tuned for the trailer for The Housewife and the Hustler. Is that
The Housewife and the Hustler, yes.
And then our hilarious and genius and brilliant outtakes.
Oh God, here's hoping.
I know. All right, we love you guys.
We love you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
We are back with the Real Housewives star accused with her husband of staging a fake divorce to hide money from the families of plane crash victims.
Thomas Girardi is accused of embezzlement. A federal lawsuit says he took money from a settlement fund to maintain their wealthy public image.
It had all the elements: Hollywood, LA, huge cases, along with a Real Housewife. It was like a movie.
Tom Girardi was LA Law, a superstar.
Legendary for winning millions of dollars in settlements.
Tom is being accused by his own clients, people that hired him, that trusted him, from stealing money.
That's the worst thing a lawyer can do.
He had private jets. He had a Pasadena mansion. He was spending $40,000 a month on Erica and her glam squad. They were just blowing money left and right. Tons of money.
He would make jokes like, well, nobody will be more expensive than Erica. And then out came her song, I'm Expensive.
King, it's expensive to be mad.
Big surprise.
She said, I have two personalities. I'm Mrs. Girardi and I'm Erica Jane. It's built on, I am the third wife. I have the money, I spend the money. And this man's gonna give me the money because I'm that fantastic, and that's that.
White Boy Rick was the downfall of Detroit, and I'm like, that's the hill you want to die on? Politicians that
That's the hill you want to die on?
Right? Thank you. I knew we'd get there. Like, the 17-year-old hunky kid is ruining Detroit. Like, that's a bad look for you, adults in the room. Why do you want to say, we couldn't do anything? It was all White Boy Rick. He was 17, and he really, really did a number on this city.
He was very mean.
They're like, oh, that's the ticket.
Yeah.
That'll get me reelected. Are you fucking crazy?